I gotta say, New Amsterdam Radio is brought to you in part by Anchor FM. Have you ever thought about making your own podcast? You see, when I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? And most importantly, I don't want to deal with cables and wires and all those things. You see, the answer to every single one of these questions is pretty simple. Anchor. Anchor is the one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. And best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And you can use your phone, which is pretty awesome. Now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. So if you ever wanted to start a podcast and make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start. That's anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast. Hello, everyone. It's New Amsterdam Radio, the podcast for creatives. Once again, it's me, Flobo Voice, and thanking you for joining with me as we navigate the streets, the concrete jungle that is the city of New Amsterdam, a city built for people like you, those who can connect with other citizens and come up with some beautiful things. Usually this is where I ask how you're doing, what projects you're working on, and please, I still want to hear that. Hit me up on Twitter at FloboVoice or on Instagram at Flobito or at Flobito.com. But I just want to say, I want to check in with you guys and say that I am okay. I am safe. This podcast is recorded out of Southern California, and California as a whole has been inundated with a rash of wildfires. Currently, I'm safe. The air quality is not that great. There is some caution that I have. I do have chronic sinusitis, but I will be okay for the time being. So thank you so much for reaching out and signing up for my DMs and being like, you all right, bro? Greatly appreciate it. My guest today is also a California original at Dog Like Nate Miller. Is someone we kind of pass streams across in the past. I've seen him in other aspects of my career, whether or not it'll be at my former hosting employer or maybe just online coming across the Twitch feed. So I was very encouraged to sit down with him. I was looking forward to it. It was just a chance encounter on a show that we had a mutual contact on a program called the Everything Tournament, where I realized, man, Nate seems pretty cool. And after sitting and chat with him, I know I can confirm that. This is Nate Miller, and like all episodes of New Amsterdam Radio, this is a condensed version for the breadth of the podcast, because the idea is I want you guys to listen to an episode of KAR while you're on your lunch break or at the gym, or if you can go to a gym, right? Or while you're walking the dog, so you can go back to work on your creative projects. But if you want to really hear the entirety of an interview with any guest, make sure you check out the Patreon. Join the boisterous crew at patreon.com/FloboVoice. That's enough rambling for me. Let's go on with the show with my talk with Nate Miller. Welcome back to New Amsterdam Radio, the podcast for creative. Of course, it's your boy, the mayor, Flobo Boys, being joined by an individual who may or may not be the most interesting man in the world. But the thing is, like most interesting people, he's all shy about it. Give it up for Nate Miller. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm good. How was that intro? I was working on that. You think
it was pretty good. That's quite the intro. I feel like you set the bar pretty high now.
So Nate Miller, man, you're at the fictional party of creatives here in downtown New Amsterdam. People are like, hey, what do you do? What is your elevator pitch that you say to cover all of the slashes, all of the things you do rolled into one? Or do you even entertain that?
I generally, my approach, I kind of rely on context of the person I'm talking to. I'm really bad about talking about myself. So in general, I never try to fit like all of the things that I do into one conversation. I usually just try to tailor it to who I'm talking to. You know, if I'm at a film party with a bunch of filmmakers and TV people, like I'm going to talk more about going to film school and studying film and stuff like that. And like maybe some of the hosting, but I'm not really going to mention music or gaming or anything of that nature. So sure. I kind of tailor it to who I'm talking to, but that's always been an issue for me, is like I feel like I have so many interests and it's hard for me to like just pick one and focus and be like laser focused on that, because as soon as I pick one, then the other ones start to look really good too. So then I shift gears, and I find myself like constantly shifting gears.
Well, it's funny that you said that because like one of my favorite comic book characters of all time, the second, Mr. Terrific, there was say Michael Holt has an aptitude for having aptitudes, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think a lot of people who have that creative base tend to wander, and if you want to be good at different things, I mean that's life experience to roll into whatever you're working on, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think now I'm just at the stage of where I'm trying to figure out how to take what I've learned from these different things, and actually like build them into something that I can build with, for lack of a better word.
Sure.
So that's the phase I'm at now. Right now, I'm trying to after the hosting experience I've gotten, I feel a lot more confident with that. And now that I recently built this PC and I have the streaming capability, I'm trying to dip my toes into streaming on Twitch. I did a couple months ago. I just started. I reached the affiliate status, got a couple of my friends to watch me. But the problem for me was that I wasn't really feeling like just gaming was going to be enough for me. I do want to stream game content because that is something I like to do. But especially after, this last 6 months and being more, as I've gotten more immersed in Twitch, during the quarantine, I've also found a lot of the other side that's outside of gaming, like the just chatting and political streamers. I'm a big fan of Hassan Piker, and watching him, talk about politics has kind of given me this energy of like, well, these issues are something I care about, even though in the past I probably wouldn't quantify it by saying I care about politics. But now that I'm more educated and I understand, the different positions, I am interested in politics. It's something I'd like to talk about. So I want to kind of move in a direction. Basically right now, I want to be a talking head. I want to do what we're doing, right? Like that's the dream, is to, I want people to value my opinion enough for people to call me up to places to say, hey, talk about this. So whether that's politics or video games or movies or music, that's my goal right now. That's what I'm trying to work towards.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. I think a lot of hosts have that same, not the same, but a very similar track, being sought after for your opinion, thought leadership, if you will. You mentioned that you were on Twitch. Of all the live streaming platforms out there, why was Twitch the one you ultimately decided to go with? Besides Mixer, right? Because that's not
yeah, right. And what's funny is I was getting my streaming stuff together before the Mixer shutdown, and I had seriously considered Mixer because there are some good opportunities to go to like a smaller platform. The thing with Twitch is just after I've become immersed in the community, like I think so much of content creation is personality based, that the personalities that I find myself wanting to interact with are on Twitch. And that's not to say that like there are great personalities on like YouTube as well. Facebook, I think, is a good opportunity, especially for new people, but I honestly just don't want anything to do with Facebook or Zuckerberg. Like Jeff Bezos is enough of a nightmare getting involved with Twitch, but at least it's like a subsidiary of Amazon.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't know, like I used to be really wary about Twitch, like Twitch chat just like was just the meme to me, like I didn't understand it, and I still don't really understand it, but I have a better understanding now. But the way, I don't know, like it's just a very unique platform that I think a lot of people, like obviously they've had huge growth this year, mostly because of the quarantine.
Right.
But I think as people realize that there is more content on Twitch outside of just watching, teenagers sweat in their basement or whatever, like I think people will start to see the value of it. People have been streaming concerts. We've had these Zoom panel discussions that have been very interesting that have been streamed on Twitch. You have people, when they could, going out and doing real life streams. You've got music streamers. T-Pain is streaming now.
Right.
I've started watching Kenny Beats, who's a great producer. He's just sitting, talking to his chat, making beats on stream. I just really like the platform in general. I think while they do have like all platforms, they have some issues. I think in general they promote a good community. They do positive things. I think the moderation team is more or less on the up and up. I really like Twitch, and it's a very difficult platform to get started in, but also,
yeah, I'm there now.
Some of the, some of the friends that I've made in it, I mean, honestly, the key is the community. Like it's hanging out in other Twitch chats and not going like, hey, come to my channel, but just getting to know some people in the chat. Like it takes a while, but eventually someone will respond to one of your comments and you might have a nice little discussion.
Do you plan that though? Is it kind of like, oh, I'm having fun, let me hang on the chat? Or is it like, no, from 9 p.m. to 11, I'm trolling for interaction? Like, how does that work?
No, see, and that's the thing is like, I can understand that perspective from, I would definitely like to think a little bit more in that perspective in terms of like planning things out and working towards a goal and stuff. But I think in terms of this, at least for me, like this has just been more natural because I've been watching specifically like Hassan so much. I've been immersed in his community, in the chat, in Discord, talking to them, meeting with people every now and then. Like someone wants to play a game. So now we're in a voice chat playing a game. And, of course, we're a bunch of leftists who watch a leftist streamer. And that's so, of course, we start talking about politics or whatever interesting things. And I get to know these people. And now these connections are formed. And then, a few months later, we're talking and I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm working on my Twitch stream. And they're like, oh, yeah, drop me your thing. I'll give you a follow. And like, boom, like that's a follow. And to me, like, not only is that a follow, but that's like a friend. Like that's an actual someone who, when you go live, is going to check you out to be like, hey, my friend's streaming. I want to see what they're talking about or whatever. Someone who shares interest with you. So, I mean, I definitely think you could schedule something like that. I just think it still has to be genuine. Like you can't force it because that is the one thing that I also do appreciate about Twitch for the most part is like the culture is very cynical. It's very internet culture. Like
I appreciate cynicism.
Yeah, you can't sneak them an ad. You can't sneak self promo. Like everybody knows the BS. Like come on. So that's another reason why I like it. Like it's got to be natural and organic, and also that's what makes the big people on Twitch kind of like so interesting is that it's not like manufactured, you know what I mean? Like it just kind of happens authentically. Someone plays with someone in a game and there's a big moment and that gets clipped and then it goes to the top of a Reddit page and everybody sees it and now that guy gets a bunch of follows and then all of a sudden now he's a big streamer. Like
right. You can be as detailed as you like here, but for a lot of us who do create in a world where due to the circumstances even for a small period of time, we were deemed not essential, and so we were requested to stay at home. What got you to the other side of being like, okay, this kind of sucks that I've been cast aside, but I understand it. What keeps you going? Like, what do you do to get the spirits up?
Man, that's a tough one.
Oh well, every day's a battle too. I'm not saying you're out of it.
Yeah,
we're all just in it. But
no, I mean. A big thing for me is gaming, obviously. Not only just using it as like an escape, but also, I like to play competitive games because it allows me to set a goal for myself and then see actual change when I achieve it. Like reaching a rank or something like that. So that's a big thing for me. Also music, listening to music. I'm a big music guy and I often use music to relax me, to motivate me. Also when I'm sad, I listen to music sometimes to like commiserate. And two, like, I mean, really the last thing is, specifically these last few months is like, I'm sounding like a broken record, but watching a lot of Twitch, like for me, being able to have a stream on and having somebody, just talking in the background helps me be productive sometimes.
Yeah.
But also like, everybody's going through this. And so even like these streamers, and I watch a lot of smaller streamers too, who are really good at talking to their community and stuff. And like just having people to kind of commiserate with and like hear other people's experience about what they're going through, helps put things in perspective, stuff like that. My family too, being able to talk to my family.
Yeah. Are they local?
No. Well, yes and no. My dad lives in Chatsworth, so he's relatively local. And then my mom lives in North Carolina. My sister's in Atlanta, so they are obviously not local.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense. And so I guess calls, FaceTimes, group chats.
Yeah, exactly. Lots of FaceTime.
Well, I know we're kind of running low on time, but I really want to ask you about the future, right? We don't know what it holds. We don't know what's going to happen next week or whatever. But I like to say this. If you were building your own city, your own empire, everything is in your image, what does that look like? What does your digital efforts look like? What do you as a person going to your public fandom, what does that Nate Miller brand look like?
Honesty and transparency. Like I've always kind of been a know-it-all kind of a guy, and I'm trying to move away from that. In one hand, I want to be able to humbly say, like, I am a very intelligent person. I can grasp large concepts. But on the other hand, I also want to say, like, life experience is, in my opinion, the greatest teacher, and I only have my experience. And as a smart person, the best thing I can do is learn from other people. True. So I want to create a platform where I can express my opinions as strong and even sometimes wrong as they may be, and have other people either agree with me or disagree with me so I can learn from people. That's really ultimately what I want to do. I want to educate people about facts that I know, as well as share my opinion, to encourage discussion, because I think that's the most important thing. I've always been that guy in the group that like is the first person to make like the black joke or whatever, and it's like, why you always got to make it about race, Nate? And my philosophy is I'm not making it about race. It always is about race. I'm just having us talk about it. And I feel like if we have more of these uncomfortable conversations, like a lot of people have had in the last few months, that is how you get to change. You don't just get to saying like, oh, racism is bad, like don't talk about it. Like, no, we need to talk about why it's in this conversation. Why don't you want to talk about it? Why does it make you feel uncomfortable? So that's really what I want to build my brand around.
So this summer you did protest, by the way, right?
I did, yeah. I went to I went to 2 protests. Nothing crazy. I just really, I don't know. Like I can't explain it. Like it just felt like something I had to do. With everything going on, and the other thing is too, like I was just feeling really angry too with everything going on, and it was a life-changing experience, honestly, being there and seeing, especially during a pandemic, like seeing people with carts just walking around with masks, offering masks to people with big, bags of hand sanitizer, giving people hand sanitizer, people walking through, giving snacks, cold water. Just the way that the crowds were, for the most part, being respectful with each other, like getting out of the way, letting elderly people through, like don't push on the rails, stuff like that. Like that is what actually gave me a lot of hope that I didn't have at that time. I was feeling a huge lack of hope in America, in our future with the pandemic, and seeing that hope with those people and the love for the community and other people that are not your own, not because it serves you for any reason, but because it's the right thing to do. That gave me a lot of hope for the future. I still think we are a long way off from an ideal place, and some real meaningful change. But I see like a sliver of hope now that makes me, for lack of a better term, not want to give up. It makes me feel more energized to keep educating, to keep talking to people, to keep spreading the truth. Because with things like the internet, we have access to so much knowledge and so much information, and for a long time the tool of oppressors is controlling information. So now being able to share information, access information, and uplift each other, I think the world is heading to a good place.
Pandemic aside, why was this year different for you? I mean, because we were black for a long time, right? Why was it different?
I mean, I don't think that you can set the pandemic aside. I don't think that you can I don't think that any of this happens without the pandemic, because the way that the system is set up, to get deep, right? You keep the workers busy. There's a reason why cost of living is so high. If you're able to comfortably work, and still have time to go home and think about the position and the life that you're in, that's when you start to question and you start to revolt and you start to have protests. So you have all these people that have been being oppressed, that have been being pushed down, that are now at home, especially with the stimulus going on. They're able to, eat and or pay their rent or live in some capacity, more than they were before with, and now they also have the free time to educate themselves, to learn, to actually go out and protest. I mean, I have been to other protests before, not for as long or with as many people, but also I was working back then. You know, like there are many times when there'd be a protest and I want to go, but like reasonably I can't go. I can't miss this day of work. You know, I'm working paycheck to paycheck. Like it's not realistic for a lot of people. So the pandemic is not, you know, even though it's a natural thing that just kind of happened, it is the catalyst that I think is going to set real change off. It really showed people what our leaders and the people who make decisions, how they value us monetarily, like what really matters to them. Looking at the death tolls, looking at how long it took for things, you know, safeties to get implemented, and then how quickly they were repealed when it wasn't safe enough. Things like this are drastically important. And the one thing I will say outside of the pandemic, but I don't know if this happens without the pandemic, but me watching someone like Hassan, who is a leftist, and learning more, you know, having definition of what my politics actually are, that was a big thing too for me being involved. Like for a long time, I think the Democrats are not doing enough. I think the Republicans are trash, obviously. And I also feel like we're stuck at where we never have a good choice. So for me, a long time as a youth, I was like, I'm just not going to be involved because I think politics are stupid. But learning from someone like Hassan about leftism and like, no, you can believe in Medicare for all. You can believe in things like socialism. You can believe that things like Marxism aren't inherently bad, and that like communism is not a dirty word. It has just been misused by people like Stalin. Like there's nuances to all of this politics stuff. Like it's never been black and white. It's always shades of gray. And so learning more about that and social democracy and stuff like that, like I have found more politics that I'm aligned with, which makes me feel more invigorated. Like, okay, not only are there other people who believe what I believe in, but it's, you know, a discussion that I can learn from them, they can learn from me, and also I can bring this to other people. Sure. I think that's the big thing for me this year.
We're seeing now more than ever that creatives are instilling their beliefs into creative works. And then there was actually a past episode about this on the show. Do you worry on any level about your personal beliefs having to interact with your creative content, and whether or not that will lead to some sort of fallout with your potential audience? Or is it kind of like your content and your beliefs are 100% aligned?
Yeah, the second one, 100%. I personally, I cannot. I can understand why other content creators might be cautious with expressing their political beliefs or like having those kind of things intermingle. I personally believe that there is no way to separate them. I think, you know, in most cases, what people call politics is actually just like humanitarian, you know, discussions of like what is right to do against people and not. And I think a lot of things have been politicized that aren't even really politics. So I think in terms of me, I will always, in whatever content I do, I'm always going to be me. And part of being me is speaking the truth about capitalism and white nationalism and classism and a bunch of other things that plague our modern day society. And I am never going to remove that from a conversation I'm involved in if it is relevant to that conversation. That being said, I try not to, I'm not trying to bash the nail on the head. I don't try to bring it up in places where I don't think it's relevant. Sure. I just am not going to shy away from it when I think it is relevant to the actual discussion. And that may make it harder for me to grow, but I also think that when I do grow, it will be with people, the people who I actually want my community, you know, to be. I don't necessarily want my community to only be people that I agree with as much as I want my community to be people that are open-minded. So even if you disagree with someone, you can actually have an intellectual discussion with them. But that does stop at the disagreement on like the value of lives or like people being injured. Like when someone's life is at stake, for me, there is no not like, all right, well, we can agree to disagree. For me, like, no, we just disagree. You can be over there and, you know, be on the side of people being hurt and oppressed and whatever. And I'm going to be over here trying to educate people about what's really going on.
Wow. Dang, man. Well, that's great. Because I think above all, it's all about authenticity, right? The relationship building your, all that stuff is all about being yourself and being real. Again, thank you so much for being on the show this week. Can you tell the world where they can follow you and find you and become one of your fans? What do you call your fans something special or no? Where can people find you online?
I haven't reached that point yet. I don't have a nickname. First of all, I want to thank you so much for having me on the show. This was really cool. I'm a big fan of yours. I had seen you at AfterBuzz and stuff, but we had not really interacted. We just kind of had people mutual in common. So this being on your show for me, this is really cool. Yeah, guys, you can find me everywhere on Twitter, Instagram, and also Twitch, twitch.tv/doglikenate. It's dog with 2 G's. Feel free to tweet me, tell me why I'm wrong, or agree with me, whatever. I love having discussion, interaction, stuff like that.
Real quick, do you have a favorite Nate Dogg song, or are you just like don't even like the guy? I was curious about that. Like, do you have a Nate Dogg song? Like,
I mean, I do like Nate Dogg. I'm not like I wouldn't consider myself like a big Nate Dogg fan. I don't know if I have a favorite song, like, Regulators, stuff like that. But
classic.
For me, like, when I think Nate Dogg, my mind, this is kind of bad, but my mind immediately goes, yes, dude. I grew up on that movie. Me and my dad watched that movie together all the time. But like, like, I just watched that movie like a couple months ago. Yeah. Like, to me, like, whenever I picture him, I just see him in that video, like, standing in front of Mount Rushmore. Like,
that was my project in high school, was to clip all the Nate Dogg songs from that movie into one track. All right, we gotta get out of here. Please come back. I want to talk to you more about how your stuff is growing and definitely get more into the nitty-gritty of your Twitch streaming. Teach me Discord because I'm an old man. Invites always open, man. New Amsterdam Radio, come through. Yes, Nate Miller is destined for great things. Make sure you follow him on social media at DogLikeNate. If you have an idea of a guest that you like to hear, if you want to hear a particular guest from a certain aspect of the creative spectrum, I am so open to hear your suggestions. Make sure you hit me up over at FloboVoice on Twitter, at Flobito on Instagram, and Flobito.com. I really want to be able to cover all different interpretations and what it means to be creative here, because this is a city for you guys. This is an area, a safe space you can talk and share ideas, and hopefully you can extract things, what's going on in the world around us. That's it for this week. As far as this show is concerned, I'll be back here next week with more fun, more guests, and more good times. If you haven't already, check out the Patreon. Join the Boisterous crew at patreon.com/FloboBoys. Bonus New Amsterdam content is there, as long as some other stuff like my Flobo Soda Netflix show, and also articles and photo galleries and all that great stuff. Until next time, as always, the city is yours. Hey there, citizens. Flobo here. Besides being a DJ or MC and an all-around nice guy, I am a stand-up comedian first and foremost. In fact, my album, American for Now, is available wherever you get your music. We're talking Apple Music, we're talking iTunes, we're talking Spotify. American for Now is just a crazy take about one person's first-generation experience being in this country when it comes to taking your mom out to Memphis or serving jury duty and much, much more. The album was called American for Now, and it's by me, Flobo Boys. Comedy Unfiltered.